Stop. Stop scrolling. Stop whatever you were about to do in the next 10 seconds. Because in the space of about 72 hours, the public relations operation around Meghan Markle has produced what may turn out to be the most chaotic, self-defeating, gossip-rich weekend of the entire post-royal era. And the most extraordinary part of it is that the team did all of it to themselves. Nobody had to push, nobody had to leak, nobody had to brief against them. They walked into the moment, one Instagram post at a time, and they planted the entire mess in public view. Picture the timeline. A weekend that began with a wedding anniversary tribute video intended to remind the world of the global fairy tale and ended with the rest of the world ignoring the post entirely. An accidental upload in the same anniversary roll of a never-before-seen photograph in which Prince Harry appears to be in a heated exchange with the Wales Nanny. A relaunched lifestyle promotion video in which Meghan, in soft focus, leans against a window in what is plainly not her own kitchen. A second promotion video shot in what looks like the same rented set, a new commemorative candle attached to the wedding anniversary itself, and hovering across the entire weekend, the recent memory of an Australian polling disaster, a Geneva speech to an empty square, and a Montecito kitchen that has now become, in the words of one of the most credentialed royal correspondents in print, the visible symbol of the failure of the entire post-royal project. Tonight, I am going to walk you through every single beat of it. The candle that crossed a line even the most loyal supporters could not defend. The anniversary post that was so loud, the silence in response was the only sound anyone could hear. The picture that almost certainly should never have been published. The kitchen that explains everything you need to know about where the Sussex finances really are. The Finnish politician selfie. The 4 candles on the anniversary cake that everybody noticed. Let us begin with the anniversary, because the anniversary is the moment the entire weekend lost its footing. It was the 8th wedding anniversary of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. By any honest metric, this should have been a soft, easy public relations win. 8 years is a milestone the public will allow you to mark. The original wedding had a global audience measured in the billions. The visuals from that day are some of the most photographed royal images of the modern era. A simple, dignified post, perhaps a single new image, perhaps a quiet handwritten line, would have done the job and let the rest of the world add the warmth. Instead, the Sussex operation chose to flood the zone. A multi-image montage tribute video, multiple posts, a new line of branded product attached to the date itself. And in among the carefully selected images that were posted to 4.5 million followers, one photograph that, by every available account, should never have left the personal archive. It appears to show Prince Harry, on the wedding day itself, in what looks visibly like a heated exchange. The interpretation circulating across royal commentary, picked up first by the popular account according to Taz, is that the exchange is with the Wales family nanny. The small children, visible in the frame, appear to several observers to look wary. The context, given everything that has been reported about tensions on the wedding day around the use of the children, has been the subject of years of speculation. The dialogue captured in still frame is now being read by viewers all around the world in the most unflattering possible light. Now, there are 2 ways to read what just happened. One reading is that this was a deliberate choice. The Sussex operation has made deliberately provocative editorial decisions before, and this would not be the first time a photograph was used to push a narrative. The other reading, the reading that the journalist Paula Froelich has put forward, is that this was simply a mistake. Meghan, by Froelich's account, has a habit of ramming a point home with too many photographs when one would do. The closer you look at the suite of images, the more the operation looks less like a calculated public relations machine and more like a single person scrolling through her own roll, picking out images on instinct, with no second pair of eyes looking over the selection before it went live. Either reading is bad. If it was deliberate, then the operation has decided that the gossip value of a picture in which Harry looks unkind is worth more than the warmth value of a clean anniversary tribute. If it was accidental, then the operation has just confirmed in public that nobody competent is looking at the cube before things are published. Froelic's hypothesis, with which most observers seem to agree, is that the second is the more likely. The Sussex operation has, by widely reported accounts, dramatically slimmed down its staff over the past 18 months. Tom Sykes of the Daily Beast Royalist Substack has reported that the production company has been pared down to a team of 2 that Archewell closed at the end of last year, and that what is left is, in the dismissive Hollywood phrase, a label, an entity that primarily exists to attach its branding to other people's projects. In that context, the picture is not a strategy. The picture is what happens when you do not have the staff to catch a mistake before it leaves the door. It is also worth noting the historical context of that single photograph, because the context is everything. The wedding day was the subject of extensive contemporary reporting about tensions between the 2 couples, the senior Cambridges and the new Sussexes, specifically over the use of the children. Reports at the time, and reported since by multiple credentialed correspondents, described disagreements about how the young bridesmaids and page boys were being treated in rehearsal and on the day itself. Several pieces of reporting have referenced an episode involving Princess Charlotte, who was 4 at the time, that left the senior royal family unhappy. The picture posted to the anniversary roll, by every available read of body language in the still frame, appears to drop the viewer directly into the middle of that tension. Whatever the actual exchange was in real time, the visual the public is now looking at is a man in royal regalia, apparently in heated conversation with a member of the Wales household, with small children in the surrounding frame visibly uncertain. That is the optics. And those optics, on a wedding anniversary post designed to generate warmth, are the worst optics the operation could possibly have produced. But the picture, in the end, is only the second most embarrassing detail of the anniversary post. The most embarrassing detail is the silence around it. Look at what is missing. The Sussex wedding in 2018 was one of the most A-list events in modern celebrity history. Oprah Winfrey, Gayle King, the Clooneys, Priyanka Chopra, Serena Williams, Elton John, James Corden, Idris Elba, the biggest names in entertainment, sport, fashion, and American media, all on the guest list. 8 years on, the Sussex anniversary post landed, and the public watched in real time what happened next. Or rather, what did not happen. Nobody reposted. Nobody quote shared. Nobody published a sweet line about how magical the day had been. None of the A-list guests posted their own throwback. None of the close friends offered a public tribute. None of the family on either side made a visible gesture. The 2 flagship American media allies, Oprah and Gayle King, who were both at the original wedding and who have been the warmest American press friends the Sussexes have, did not put anything publicly on their platforms about the anniversary. Serena Williams, who has been notably more distant in recent months and was lukewarm at best around the latest As Ever launch, said nothing. The Clooneys said nothing. Priyanka Chopra said nothing. Elton John, whose image Meghan included in her own tribute video, did not reciprocate. The royal commentary writer Queen Esther put it as cleanly as anyone has. The world, she wrote, is now respecting the privacy of Meghan and Harry, except for Meghan and Harry themselves. Imagine going from a wedding packed with A-listers to 8 years later and not one visible celebrity friend, not one bestie, not one A-lister or family member publicly wishing them a happy anniversary. No posts, no flowers, no tributes, just silence. And the silence in this kind of gossip is the entire story, because silence on a major celebrity anniversary is not an accident of scheduling. Celebrity friends are professionals. They know when an anniversary falls. They know when a public marker is expected. They know the cost of saying nothing. And when an entire room full of A-listers, all of whom posted within the same week about other personal moments belonging to other friends, simultaneously declines to put a single line up about you, that is not coincidence. That is a coordinated, polite, unmistakable cooling. There is one more telling detail in the anniversary content, and it is the detail that the close observers spotted immediately. In the tribute video itself, The cake imagery used by the Sussexes had, on visible inspection, 4 candles. 4, not 8. The 8th wedding anniversary should have had 8. So either the production team did not bother to count, or the imagery was repurposed from a previous anniversary post and dropped in without a refresh. Or, the kindest interpretation, somebody on the team thought it looked nicer with 4. None of those readings is good. Every single one of them confirms the wider diagnosis that the Sussex operation no longer has the staff or the discipline to catch the kind of detail that would, in any healthy public relations machine, never have left the building. It is also worth noting where the only visible anniversary tributes appeared to come from, because the answer is darkly funny. Queen Esther observed, with the kind of dry humor that lands hardest in this kind of story, that the only visible public anniversary wishes appeared to come from airline crew who had reportedly been informed about the anniversary in advance. That is the social ladder the Sussexes have ended up on this weekend. From a wedding guest list of A-list global celebrities to a public tribute roster of flight attendants. That sentence will hurt regardless of which side of the royal debate you sit on. There is one more uncomfortable observation underneath all of it, raised quietly across the royal commentary world. The Sussexes have, over the past several months, openly floated the idea of a vow renewal. The framing being trialed is that they never got the wedding they truly wanted, that the institution surrounding the original day denied them the celebration they deserved, and that a vow renewal would put that right. Read that line back in the context of this weekend's anniversary silence. They had one of the most A-list celebrity weddings in modern history, attended in person by some of the most famous people on the planet. 8 years later, the same celebrity world declined to publicly mark the anniversary. The strategic question now sits in front of the operation in plain view. The issue with the vow renewal idea, several observers have begun to suggest, may not be renewing the vows. The issue may be finding enough people willing to attend. Now, before we get to the kitchen, we need to address the candle, because the candle is the moment the wider press, including some of the friendliest American outlets, drew a quiet line. The Sussexes commercial brand, as ever, has been launching a steady stream of lifestyle products over the past year. Jams, honeys, marmalades, branded packaging. The pantry video, the one that Meghan posted to lead the weekend's content push, was a wide-angle promotion of the entire As Ever product line and a direct call to fans to shop the complete pantry. So far, so familiar, lifestyle brands launch lifestyle products. Many celebrities do it successfully. The decision to attach a new candle to the wedding anniversary itself, however, broke a line that even the most patient observers have flagged. The Sussex operation has, in the past, taken commercial heat for products that appeared to be named in honor of or otherwise tied to the late Queen Elizabeth II. Tom Sykes covered an earlier candle situation at the start of 2026, in which a press release had to be quickly rewritten to reframe an existing candle around the founder's daughter rather than around her late majesty. So the precedent is already there for using royal personal connections as branded product anchors. This weekend, the family connection being used was not the late queen, it was the wedding itself. The wedding paid for, in significant part, by British taxpayers and by the institutional resources of the British royal family, turned 8 years later into the launch peg for a candle being sold to the public. The criticism on this point has not come from cynics. It has come from people who have been broadly sympathetic to the Sussexes in the past. The argument is not complicated. There are some things that, even in a fully commercial lifestyle brand, you do not turn into a candle. A wedding underwritten by the institutional and financial resources of the family you have spent 6 years publicly criticizing is one of those things. The press release optics on it are bad. The political optics on it are worse. And the timing, attached to an anniversary the wider celebrity world had already decided to ignore, made the product look smaller than it was supposed to be. It is worth taking a step back and looking at the pattern across the entire candle history of the brand, because the pattern is its own piece of gossip. The very first publicized As Ever candle, by Sykes' earlier reporting in The Royalist, ran into the trouble around the rewritten press release. The next round of product releases drew criticism over apparent overlap with branding from existing, much smaller, woman-owned businesses, an issue that generated quiet but real bad will in the wider entrepreneurial community. Now, the latest product release attaches itself to the wedding day directly. 3 product releases, 3 rounds of avoidable controversy. In a normal brand operation, a single one of these would have prompted a sit-down meeting, an internal review, and a tightening of the approval process. In this operation, by every available indication, no such tightening appears to have taken place. The candles, by every visible reading, are simply being launched as fast as the team can launch them, and the optics are being managed afterwards through press release rewrites and quiet caption edits. That is not how a serious lifestyle brand operates. That is how a brand operates when the urgency of generating immediate revenue has overtaken the discipline of protecting the brand. Now to the kitchen. Because the kitchen, Sykes has now argued in print, is the symbol of the entire failure. For weeks, observers have been quietly noting that Meghan's new content was being shot in what appeared to be a single, distinctive kitchen. Orange-brown wood cabinets, copper pots hanging from the ceiling. The kind of interior, in Sykes's memorable phrase, that looks like it was last touched in 2003, and that looks specifically like it was designed by somebody who thought the Olive Garden chain was aspirational. The new As Ever promotional video, in which Meghan leans against a window pretending to drink tea with an expression pitched somewhere between seductive and aspirational, was shot, by every available indication, in a continuation of the same rented farmhouse set that was used for the original With Love Meghan production, not the actual Montecito family kitchen, a rented one, a working set. Now ask the obvious question, why is Meghan, of all the public figures in the world, shooting her brand content in a rented farmhouse kitchen instead of in her own? And the answer, in the column Tom Sykes published in The Royalist this week titled 8 Years On, Meghan's Taco Bell kitchen is the symbol of Project Sussex's failure, is the answer the wider gossip world has been edging toward for months. Her own kitchen, by every available indication and by sources close to the area Sykes has now spoken to, has not been remodeled. The house was bought in 2020, and parts of it date to a previous renovation cycle done by a former owner who, by historical record, was the Russian businessman who died in circumstances reported variously across the international press. The kitchen, by these accounts, has not been touched since. In Montecito, in 2026. In a town where the baseline expectation among the wealthy is that the moment you buy a house, you remodel it from the footprint up. Sykes was told by a person familiar with the local social circles that the Sussex house is, in Montecito terms, a laughing stock. In a town where conspicuous renovation is essentially a hobby for the wives of the very rich, the fact that the Sussexes have not redone even the kitchen after 6 years in the house is a local tell. Not a tabloid speculation, a local tell. The kind of detail neighbors notice and quietly trade among themselves. The Sykes column itself broke this point open with a rare degree of specificity. He had been told, by somebody who lived in the area, that the Sussex house is regarded as a laughing stock in Montecito social circles. The line about the kitchen being something out of an Olive Garden circa 1994 had come from a separate Royalist piece 2 weeks earlier, in which Sykes had also reported, from sources in the United States, that the couple cannot afford to remodel. That was the kind of detail that, when it first ran, the friendly press did not pick up. 2 weeks later, with Meghan now visibly shooting her commercial content in a rented kitchen rather than her own, the local sourcing has acquired the unmistakable ring of truth. The kitchen story is no longer a one-off observation. It is now a sustained, on-the-record assessment from a credentialed correspondent with sources in the geography being described. And here's where the kitchen stops being a kitchen and starts being a symbol. The Sussex operation for the entire post-royal era has been built on a vision of California living that was supposed to be aspirational. Lifestyle content, quiet luxury, bespoke interiors. The whole curated promise of a couple who had escaped institutional constraint and could now live, on their own terms, in the manner Meghan had reportedly imagined for herself for years. That promise required at the very least a visible kitchen worth showing, and 6 years on, the kitchen is not worth showing. It is so visibly not worth showing that the brand has been pushed by sheer necessity to shoot its anchor content in somebody else's farmhouse and pretend that this is the lifestyle. Compare that to the Frogmore Cottage situation, the property the Sussexes occupied as working senior royals before the departure. That property underwent a renovation reported at the time to have cost in the region of £2 million, and Meghan was directly involved in the design decisions. The Frogmore kitchen, by all accounts and by photographs released at the time, was bright, modern, light-filled, the kind of space anyone would want to entertain in. So the lifestyle brand does have a track record of producing a beautiful kitchen when somebody else is paying. When the bill has to be carried by the brand's own commercial earnings, the kitchen, by every visible indication, has stayed exactly as it was when the house was bought. That is the gossip moral of the entire kitchen story. The promise of California escape required a budget the post-royal brand has not, in the end, been able to generate. Sykes's local sources, by his reporting, view the UN remodeled kitchen as a significant local indicator of failing financial firepower. The kitchen in that reading is not a stylistic choice. It is a balance sheet sitting in plain view where every viewer can see it. There is also a very particular detail in the unremodeled kitchen story that explains on its own why this is being read in Montecito the way it is. The lifestyle brand around Meghan has, for years, been built on the premise that she is the curator of beautiful things, the tastemaker, the natural style authority, the woman with the eye. That premise depends on a coherent visual identity carried through every aspect of public life. So when the curator of beautiful things is, 6 years into a house, still living with a kitchen that other people in the neighborhood are openly mocking, the premise itself starts to wobble. It is not that the kitchen is bad. There is nothing wrong with a kitchen full of copper pots. People love copper pots. There is nothing wrong with orange-brown cabinets. There is nothing wrong with the Olive Garden chain. The criticism is not about taste in absolute terms. The criticism is about the gap between the public taste positioning and the actual lived environment. The gap is what the neighbors have noticed. The gap is what Sykes's sources have been talking about. And the gap is what the rented farmhouse video has just confirmed. Now to the wider commercial reality, because the kitchen sits inside a wider picture that has been turning all year. By every available account, the Australia trip earlier this year was a polling disaster. The Sussexes flew in for an Invictus-related visit, generated coverage that the team described as the right kind of impact, and yet, by independent web traffic analysis, public engagement with Sussex content actually declined during the visit. Sykes pointed in his column to the analysis done by the royal data observer Jack Royston, drawing on similar web information, which showed Australian traffic falling rather than rising while the Sussexes were on the ground. The official line that you had to be there, that it was different in the room, did not survive contact with the numbers. And it was during the same Australia trip that one of the more genuinely awkward gossip threads of the year was generated. Meghan was photographed posing for a selfie with a Finnish politician who, by reports published in the Sykes Royalist column and elsewhere, was facing serious allegations of sexual harassment and racism. The optics of that selfie, in the middle of a tour that was already misfiring, drew immediate attention. The standard vetting routine that any working royal communications team would have run before allowing a public photograph with a controversial figure, by every visible indication, was not run. Either the team did not check, or the team did check and went ahead anyway. Both readings are bad. The Royalist column itself, co-bylined by Sykes and Victoria Gusha, was published almost exactly on the eve of the Sussex wedding anniversary, which gave the selfie story a brutal additional irony. The anniversary content was supposed to lead the week. Instead, the first gossip beat of the week was a photograph of Meghan with a foreign politician under a cloud, and the underlying message every observer took home was the same. Nobody is checking the room before she steps into it. Nobody is since checking the photographs before they go on her phone roll. Nobody is wargaming the obvious questions that any working senior royal staff would have asked 24 hours in advance. That is what a fully functioning brand operation does, every single day as a matter of course. The Sussex operation, by every observable signal across the past month, is no longer running that check. So look at the run of weeks the Sussex operation has just put together. Australia, where the polling collapsed and the Finnish politician selfie embarrassed everyone. Geneva, where Meghan addressed an empty square in front of the most senior global health official on Earth, and where her own Instagram post the night before, featuring her 4-year-old daughter in a wardrobe shot with $250,000 of clothing in the frame, contradicted the message of her own speech. And now this weekend, the anniversary post that fell completely flat with the A-list audience that was supposed to amplify it, the accidental publication of an unflattering wedding day photograph, the wedding-themed candle, and the relaunched As Ever video shot in a rented kitchen that pretends to be hers. That is the run. And the diagnosis Sykes offered in his column is one of the cleanest paragraphs anyone has written on the entire Sussex situation. The Meghan and Harry brand, he argued, is in a state of total chaos. A scattergun, nobody is steering it. One day it is serious Meghan with the World Health Organization. 2 days later, it is anniversary content set to pop music and a penguin ornament. The two modes do not reinforce each other. They cancel each other out. You cannot be a serious geopolitical voice on Sunday and an aspirational lifestyle influencer on Tuesday and expect either pose to land. The audience cannot keep up. And the brand, in trying to be every kind of brand, ends up being no kind of brand at all. There is also a much sadder undercurrent under all of it, and the journalist Paula Froelich named it as cleanly as anyone has. She said gently that she was almost starting to feel bad for Meghan at this point. She stressed the word almost, but the underlying observation was sincere. The new As Ever promo with the soft focus window pose, the dramatic gazing into the camera, the carefully composed, seductive lighting was selling Meghan herself as the product. And the audience, by every available signal, is not buying. Froelich's read on the operation as a whole was simple. Meghan, she said, does not know what the strategy is. The team around her does not know. The flood the zone approach is what you do when you have stopped trusting any single piece of content to land on its own. You throw everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. And this weekend, by every measurable metric, nothing did. Meanwhile, the king. King Charles this week found himself the subject of a rather different royal moment. While participating in a public engagement, the king was, in the most polite possible phrasing, pooped on by a passing bird. The footage made the rounds. The king's reaction, by every account, was characteristically good-humored. The traditional British folk belief, of course, is that being targeted by a passing bird in this manner is good luck. And it has to be said, the king handled it with the dry, unbothered composure that his entire reign has been built on. While that footage was circulating, however, a separate piece of news landed that the king will have been considerably less amused about. The first batch of official documents related to the appointment of the former Duke of York, now formally known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as a United Kingdom trade envoy, has just been released by the British government. The Daily Telegraph led the coverage. By the released documents, there was no evidence of formal security vetting when the appointment was made. Andrew, the documents indicate, told officials at the time that he preferred to visit what he called more sophisticated countries on overseas trips. The documents also note, with a touch of dry editorial dignity, that the former Duke of York preferred ballet to the theater. A separate internal memo records that the late Queen Elizabeth II was, in the language of the official document, very keen for the former Duke to take on a prominent role in the promotion of national interests. That last detail is the politically sensitive line in the whole release. Because what it means in practice is that the appointment was carried through not on the strength of the candidate's qualifications, but on the strength of his mother's personal preference. And it was carried through without the standard security vetting that any other public appointment of that scale would have required. None of this, in the cold light of the public record, will surprise anyone who has followed the wider Andrew story over the past several years. But it is also the first batch of documents. There are more batches coming, and every batch is going to reopen the same wound for King Charles, who has been working with visible effort to put the Andrew chapter behind the institution. It is worth pausing to recognize the institutional difficulty this creates for the current monarch. The late Queen, by every available account, did push for her son to occupy a prominent national role, and the documents released this week make that preference part of the official paper trail. The king now inherits the consequences of that decision. Every fresh release of documents will tell, in part, a story about institutional choices that were made before he ascended. He cannot rewrite the past. He cannot pretend the appointments did not happen. He can only continue to do what he has been doing, which is to remove his brother from the most visible institutional roles, to support the formal stripping of certain styles and patronages, and to make clear, by his own choices about who he stands next to in public, that the institution he leads is moving forward on a different basis. This is, in the cold reality of royal succession, the kind of inherited problem every new reign has to handle. Some of those problems can be quietly resolved. Some of them keep coming back for years. The Andrew problem, by every available signal, is the second kind. And while the bulk of the British public broadly supports the institutional steps that have already been taken, there is also a growing recognition in serious royal commentary that more difficult chapters may still lie ahead. There are journalists, including Andrew Lowney among others, who have argued that the wider story is far from finished and that more revelations may be coming. Whether that proves to be true or not, the documents released this week are a reminder that the past does not stay buried merely because the current administration would prefer it to. So this is the royal landscape as we leave it this week. One side of the family is dealing with a kitchen, a candle, a misposted wedding photograph, an unhappy promo video, and the deafening silence of an A-list celebrity world that has, very politely, moved on. The other side is dealing with a football team finally hitting form, a passing bird, and the slow drip of historical documents about a different family member navigated with the steady, unshowy discipline that has come to characterize the entire reign so far. You cannot manufacture 2 decades of consistent behavior by flooding the zone one weekend in May. You cannot turn a kitchen no neighbor will admit liking into the center of a lifestyle empire. You cannot rebrand from serious geopolitical voice to penguin-themed anniversary content in 48 hours and expect either pose to land. And you cannot, by every available signal from the celebrity friends who once stood beside you at the altar, retain their public endorsement when the operation around you has become something even their own communications teams now actively avoid. So here's where we land. A weekend of total Sussex chaos. A kitchen that is now a metaphor. An anniversary that ended in silence. A candle that crossed a line. A misposted photograph that may, in the end, be the most revealing image of the entire 8 years. A relaunched as-ever video shot somewhere that is not the family home. A growing pile of documents about a former duke that will not go away. And, in the middle of it all, a future king of the United Kingdom enjoying his football team finally winning, while the institution he will one day lead continues, calmly and quietly, to do exactly what it has done for 1,000 years. Keep going. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Let the contrast make itself. Stay sharp. Stay watching. Because the story that began in Italy 2 weeks ago, ran through Geneva last weekend, and arrived at a rented farmhouse kitchen this weekend is not over. It is, by every honest reading, only just entering the chapter that everybody else has been able to see coming for a very, very long time. I will see you very soon.